Vicky and from me. I am all togged up in wonderful presents. The brooch and the pendant are from some American cousins called Kate and James, and the choker and this magnificent sable and cashmere cardigan is from my dear Australian friend Ros Palmer, who is one of Australia's leading interior designers. So, without further ado, since we have a lot of ground to cover today, because of course, God forbid that Christmas should come without Harry and Meghan and their supporters wangling their way into various equations, but there's lots of other ground to cover today. So I will plunge right in, if I may. And Mickey, I don't know how Mickey is going to cope with this, but Endless Possibilities says, Lady C, have you heard Meghan Markle could be forced to testify against Prince Andrew, according to the Daily Beast, as she may be a credible witness to his behaviour and may have heard things about his behaviour? Can you believe such foolishness? What are your thoughts? Well, I've got to tell you, the report is absolutely accurate because it comes from Tom Sykes of the Daily Beast, who is the Daily Beast's royal reporter. I think Mickey wants to come down, so I'm going to let her come down. Go on down. Down. Good girl. Yes, it's very uncomfortable for Mickey to be in my lap. She's used to being beside me, not on me, so to speak. Yeah. As I was saying, Tom Sykes is the royal correspondent for the Daily Beast. He's impeccably connected. I happen to know this as a fact. There is absolutely no doubt that the story has veracity. However, what doesn't have credibility is the way it has been formulated, the purpose for which it has been formulated, and the fact that Meghan, according to David Boyes, who is Virginia Giuffre's lawyer, that Meghan might be asked to give a deposition because she would speak the truth. Well, did he see the Oprah interview? Has he seen her wild inconsistencies? Has he seen how completely incredible she is? And she would be anything but a credible witness? Well, I have friends who know David Boyes, have worked with David Boyes, have worked against David Boyes. And I think those of you who are familiar with my background will also know that unlike many people in the public eye, I know my way around the law. I have been an extremely successful litigant. I even helped my brother set up his law firm, which was a human rights practice. David Boyes, let me say right now, is an extremely capable lawyer, but he's in this for more than one reason. In my opinion, his primary reason for having taken on Virginia Giuffre, and this is not my own opinion, incidentally, although it is my opinion, it's the opinion of many people who know what's going on. He's a firm Democratic Party supporter. He used to work for the Clintons. He still works for the Clintons. This is all a massive diversionary exercise to keep President Clinton out of the frame. Now, those of you who are familiar with this show will know that I actually am something of an admirer of President Clinton from when he was in office. I'm not going to get into the fact that I keep a complete division between a president's political performance and his performance as a human being. I'm not even going there because it's quite obvious that if I went there, you could be absolutely sure that I was not an admirer of President Clinton in certain aspects of his personal life. But putting that aside, I do not believe that good leaders necessarily need to be good people or indeed moral. In fact, I would have gone as far as saying that the history lesson, if one cares to read history, is that often very amoral people make very good leaders because they're not bothered by the rights and wrongs of things or the niceties of things. Anyway, to get back to the main point. The main point is that David Boys destroyed his reputation with very dubious tactics while he was representing Harvey Weinstein. So part of his motivation, in the opinion of people who are well informed, is that he is trying to retrieve the reputation that he destroyed when he represented Harvey Weinstein. He also seems to have not learnt the lesson that he should have learnt from when he got into such trouble reputationally as a result of the dubious and dodgy tactics that he employed while representing Harvey Weinstein. He's at it again. He obviously hasn't learned his lesson yet. But then maybe another way of looking at it is the natural function of an anus is to, shall we say, expel waste matter. And maybe he's just an anus, a well-trained anus, so he doesn't foul everywhere constantly, but not so beyond his natural instinct that he doesn't let loose, and sometimes to his own detriment. He did it over Harvey Weinstein, the Harvey Weinstein case. Very dubious tactics, very. And he's employing them again. There is very little doubt in my mind, and I'm now going to speak totally for myself because I don't want anybody to think that I am giving messages on behalf of any human being, because in this instance, I need to be absolutely clear about the fact that I am better informed than people might always realize, but I am not a conduit, I'm not a messenger, and I'm not giving a message to David Boys. However, if I were giving a message to David Boys, what I would say was, Mr. Boys, be very careful. You widen the net at your peril. You widen the net at President Clinton's peril. What does Meghan have to contribute to the case? Of course, we all know that Meghan is a Democratic Party supporter and has political ambitions. any contribution she made would right there be dubious. Also, Meghan Markle is well known to be a less than credible witness to anything and to be an ace opportunist. So any evidence that you might hope or expect or even orchestrate to winkle out of her might actually turn out to be pointless, because Meghan Markle in cross-examination would be completely devastated. That's one thing. Another thing is, you do realize, of course, don't you, that any contribution Meghan Markle makes to what she heard can also be extended by her detractors as to what she might have seen, and seen rather earlier than her entry into the royal family. You need to be very careful. You know, Meghan Markle has a reputation, and it would not behoove her to open up the subject of young girls with rich men, because the very questions, irrespective of the answers, would damage her reputationally. That's another thing that you might care to consider. But the most important one that you may care to consider is if Meghan Markle's obscure relationship to the matter caused Meghan to be dragged into the equation. Think about this for a moment. Do you really think Prince Andrew's legal team wouldn't then have a valid reason to call President Clinton as to what he did and didn't see and did and didn't know? I suspect you might be beginning to get the drift of things, if you're listening. And if you're not, I'm sure somebody's going to inform you, because I know how these things work. The whole thing is tantamount, in my view, to grandstanding and a male of a certain colour. Mickey, go and get that blackmail. I tell you, you couldn't make it up. Kitty says, Dear Lady C, have you seen an article published in The Sun a couple of days ago about the Queen's concerns of Prince William and his family all flying in helicopters? She's apparently very convinced and has trouble sleeping because of this. If this is true, why would someone from Buckingham Palace leak such an incendiary to the press? This is the conversation to be had inside the family, privately. It also gives the fuel to the detractors and haters of the Cambridges to wish them ill, as if there are not enough of those. Many people have expressed their concern over this news leaking in the press, and voiced their general concern over what seems to be the increased inability of the Queen's private secretary, Edward Young, to handle his job properly, especially considering the mess that's been going on with Harry and Meghan. A lot of people agree that since the Lord Gate had left the Queen as her private secretary, she's become more vulnerable, and the royal households in general have emerged rather poorly managed. Allegedly, getting rid of the Lord Gate had been the doing of Prince Charles and Prince Andrew. Too bad he had to leave. It is becoming increasingly obvious that a man such as him would be much needed in the royal family right now. What do you think about the above news leak? It is also rather contradictory, as just the other day, the Telegraph reported how harmonious and collaborative the three households have become, namely the Queen's, Prince Charles's, and Prince William's. The Sun article sent the mixed signal message in contrast to the Daily Telegraph message. Which is it? Are the royal households collaborating, or are they breaking, leaking against each other again? Well, that's a very interesting question and a very complex question, and she actually covers quite a lot of terrain in it. So I'm going to try to narrow it down. First of all, yes, Lord Guyte was an extremely capable and efficient private secretary. He managed things with an iron fist. Sir Edward manages them with a rather more velvety glove. Is he mismanaging them? I would actually submit that, in fact, the royal family is, despite being perceived as being quite ineffectual in reining in Meghan and Harry, are actually more popular, more positive attention is given to them generally. They are more in the news and more topical than they have been in a long time. And in part, I would say that that is not only because of Harry and Meghan's antics, but also because of the fact that this is one situation where a velvet glove in a steel hand will do the trick far more effectively, because the technique of giving Harry and Meghan enough rope to hang themselves with doesn't allow the royal family to expose them. It means that the royal family are allowing Harry and Meghan to expose themselves. That, I would submit, is a far more effective technique than retaliating, orchestrating, manipulating. You know, as Napoleon said, if your enemy's making a mistake, don't stop him from doing so. Insofar as Prince William and the family, his immediate family, all taking helicopter rides with him flying is concerned, I think all of you who have been looking at this program will know that this has been a concern for some time in royal circles. Remember the famous comment that Meghan and Harry are but one plane crash away from the throne? That is the reality. If William has the whole of his family in a helicopter and it crashes, Harry and Meghan ultimately become king and queen. The three households are not disunited on this point, I can assure you. They are very united. The most troublesome person in all of this has been the rather self-willed and strong-willed Prince William, who has, it has to be said, an obstinate streak. Usually, this is a good thing. In this respect, it is not a good thing. The fact that the news has leaked, you can depend on it, is out of concern that if Prince William and his family should be wiped out, the monarchy will be wiped out. Because there is no way that Harry and Meghan will be acceptable to the British people. So I hope that covers the whole of the terrain. Neil Cochrane Cooper says, "Dear Lady C, thank you for another brilliantly sharp vlog." I don't know which one you're referring to, Mr. Cochrane Cooper, but thank you. May I ask for your take on Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge, featuring on the cover of People magazine in the United States for her 40th birthday? He doesn't say it, but I'll say, which is coming up in January. And the fact that the vibe being reported there now is that it is a sign that Meghan and Harry are on the wane in the popularity stakes, and that 2022 will see a renewed interest in the royal family proper, as people are tiring of Meghan's self-important ways. Thank you. Well, Neil Cochrane Cooper, great question. Thanks for asking it. I'm not 100% sure that People magazine are going to be boosting Catherine more than Meghan. They have a very close relationship with Sunshine Sachs, and therefore they will continue to oblige with Sunshine Sachs's clients, who are Harry and Meghan. But yes, there is no doubt that Catherine, Cambridge, and Prince William are winning the popularity contest that they didn't create, that Meghan and Harry created, and that they are losing abysmally as well as dismally. Also, I should say, when I was answering the David Boyes question and the fact that Meghan might be called as a witness to Virginia Giuffre's case, Ken Sunshine and David Boyes are old colleagues. One could almost say partners in activities, political and otherwise. I forgot to mention that, which is an important point. So, who knows? Maybe Ken Sunshine had a word with David Boyes and said, "Oh, you need to bring Meghan's name into it, even if you don't call her as a witness. We need to keep her relevant. We need to keep her in the forefront." It's not beyond the realms of possibility. The wheels within wheels, I tell you, when you're dealing with a certain category of creature, is just beyond belief. Amy Petchich says, "Do you believe the media stories that Kate is trying to repair her relationship with Meghan and that they are now in communication regularly? That she is doing this for William's sake?" Mickey, come here quickly, honey. Quickly. Mickey, grab that tooth fairy that's flying out of the drawing room. Do I need to say more? The whole thing is preposterous. Yet again, this is Meghan's PR people keeping her topical and relevant. They know that Catherine Cambridge is not going to say anything. But how likely do you think it is that this story could have got out from the Cambridge's cap? That is as likely as Meghan being called as a credible witness because she has a reputation for truth-telling. Nicola Mooney says, Lady C, isn't it interesting Harry's wife is packed in Montecito the other day, shortly after the Queen cancels lunch? Well, Nicola Mooney, we know our girl has to always compete. One royal does something, she's got to do another. But there are other dimensions to this that I'm sure coincide with the interesting timing of it. Pam Marshall says, Lady C, I absolutely adore your videos and content. Thank you very much. You are so elegant and eloquent. Thank you. I want to be like you when I grow up. I hope you're not 62. And I appreciate your insight. Thank you very much. What are your thoughts on the most recent paparazzi shots of Meghan in California? The copyright on the photos does not seem to be the regular photographers she usually goes with, like Splash or Backgrid. Could she be using a new photographer to throw off the public? Well, I think we can safely say that she wasn't packed, that she posed and was photographed. I'm actually going to read a comment from somebody called Socratic Sagacity, which actually spares me having to explain anything and pretty much says it all. And at the end of this comment, if I have anything to add, I will add it then. Massimo Dutti. What on earth are the Spanish clothing brand thinking, allowing Narkle to advertise and merch their winter coat? In my opinion, this is an epic PR fail. The fake paparazzo photo was clearly a setup and was seen for what it was, a commercial advertisement. Mrs. Pinocchio looked like a homeless bag lady. All that was missing was the trolley. Oh gosh, Mickey should be here for me to cuddle. Massimo Dutti is owned by the Inditex Group. The company's flagship store is Zara, favoured by the elegant Duchess of Cambridge, and may I say my children. They also own my favourite stores here in Greece, Stradivarius and Oysho. The iconic fashion houses of Europe refused to dress Narkle before her marriage into the royal family. She is not A-list and never was, nor will she ever be. Sartorial elegance is what... Sorry. I'm gonna have to start this over. Sartorial elegance is what Lady C has in abundance. Thank you so much. My instructors at FIT would be thrilled to hear that. Especially my darling Mrs. Farrar, who I'm sure is long since off this earth, but maybe up there she can hear me. And Narkle is not even close. Massimo Dutti has some beautiful clothes, and it's sad they will lose customers, myself included, because of their connection to what I regard as a con artist. I tell you, you couldn't make these things up. I mean, you guys are just heavenly. Well, it's absolutely clear from the shadows and the framing of what we are supposed to believe, or what it is hoped that we would have been duped and conned into believing, was a paparazzo shot, that it was set up and posed. The photographer is very close to Meghan. He couldn't have got there without her collusion. Remember, she has security, lots of security. So that's one giveaway. Another giveaway is her lack of a reaction, her pose. It's absolutely obvious that they have paid her to march. Do you begin to see why the royal family was so distressed about Meghan's determination to convert everything into money? Jake Stuff says, Lady C, I would like to thank you for waking me up to my narcissistic mother, who has been torturing me with her verbal words all my life! Exclamation mark. And her stonewalling. I know this seems strange, but I want to thank Meghan Markle because I didn't know what narcissism was! Exclamation mark. It wasn't until I observed that my mother and Meghan had similar traits and were saying the same things! Exclamation mark. Lady C, you pointed out that your mother was narcissistic, and so I started to research on narcissistic behavior. I now feel absolutely set free! Exclamation mark. That's wonderful, my dear. Absolutely wonderful. I know exactly what you mean. These last couple of days, I wasn't feeling too good because I realized that I have been totally manipulated. We all have. When you said I must have Christ's compassion, I realized absolutely. Forgiveness is for yourself. Yeah, you need to let yourself off the hook. You don't need to feel you're a fool just because you're duped. Clever con artists dupe even brilliant people. Now I realize I don't have to put up with the crap. You don't. You absolutely don't. And please don't. Draw the lines. And don't be a victim. Don't allow yourself to be victimized. And isn't it wonderful that Meghan Markle has been your road to seeing the light? Isn't it wonderful? You see, she serves a positive purpose, not only a negative purpose. Rachel Butler says, not only is Meghan and Harry's company registered in Delaware, they also fill out tax returns for under $200,000 US. That is why we are not seeing their tax returns. Under $200,000, you don't get the same scrutiny. You can keep it in-house. Harry and Meghan, where is Archewell's money? Well, I'm not going to say the obvious. I'm going to let you think it. What I will say is, Archewell is not a charity. One part of it is plainly for profit. The other part of it is a non-profit. Even charities are allowed to take expenses and to have administrative fees, etc., etc. Where is Archewell's money going? Archewell was set up as a financial vehicle to maximize Harry and Meghan's wealth and their possibility of increasing it exponentially. It is not a charity. Do not think for a second it's a charity. Do not think that they rely on donations only. You only need to go onto their website to see that it is a very clever, exploitative operation where every single twist, turn, angle to exploit has been carefully built into the structure. For instance, if you give them a story, not only do you have no right thereafter to the story, you have no benefit from the story, but you are obliged to promote the story if they wish you to do so. That is rarely saying somebody gives you something, you maximize it exploitatively, and you give the person nothing in return. That to me is just disgustingly disreputable and awful behavior. But it shows what they are about. It shows what their thinking is. It shows what their structure is. None of this was done lightly or carelessly. It was done weightily and carefully. The whole operation is a massive exploitation of their royal status and anybody who falls into their orbit who can be financially exploited. It's not a charity. It's not a charity. And even if it were a charity, they would still have the right to take expenses. As it is the ship upon which they intend to float to billionaire status. Somehow I don't think they're going to make it. However, you never know. Carson says, Dear Lady C, from some of the questions you receive and other comments online, it is clear many people still think the first edition of the Andrew Morton book and the Panorama interview with Diana were wholly factual. This despite your own excellent books and TV online appearances and revelations from other sources. Why do you think the myth of Diana is still so strong? I'm not saying she didn't do good in the world, but she was not the paragon people seem to believe. Chris Carlson, Diana was the first to tell you she wasn't a saint or an angel. She said it repeatedly. However, she wanted people to believe that she was a good person and that any failings she had, she didn't really have. As Sir David English said, and he was the head of Associated News and knew her very well, he said he had never seen a more brilliant practitioner of the art of public relations. She was brilliant, where Meghan and Harry are not. I think that the reason why a lot of people still want to believe the fiction is that they think that they are dishonoring that which was good by accepting her as a whole and flawed human being. I happen to think that if you can like and love somebody as they are, warts and all, to use the popular expression, that is far truer love, and that honours them far more than pretending that they are perfect when they are not. No one is perfect, and Diana certainly wasn't. She didn't claim to be, but she certainly set things up in such a way that she excused every single one of her failings. I think complexity may be just beyond some people's abilities. I think it maybe is as simple as that. Christos Liakis says, "Dear Lady C, more moaning from has-been in a letter to a veteran about not being able to help veterans properly, now that the meanies in Britain have taken away his military titles. Will he ever stop doubling down on failed tactics, I wonder?" Well, Harry is not responsible for anything. Everybody's to blame for everything. But when he takes credit that isn't his due, he makes absolutely sure that he believes, or gets you to believe, that it was his due. I think he believes it's his due, but he certainly gets you to believe that it's his due. For instance, Harry is pushed forth as the creator of the Invictus Games. You know, he's not the creator of the Invictus Games. The Invictus Games were a replicate of the Warrior Games in the United States. He simply took the idea, and it's a brilliant idea, replicated it, renamed it, and thereafter pushed the fiction that he created it. Well, you can't create something that you didn't create. If you have replicated it, you've copied it, but it's not your original idea. I just say that for what it's worth. Also, I think you should listen to what Sergeant Trevor Colt, MC, says about Harry and about Harry's time in Afghanistan and about the fiction that Harry was more exposed than he was. Now, Sergeant Colt is a genuine war hero. He has the Military Cross to prove it. He and Harry were, well, let me rephrase that. He tried to get Harry to assist him in his cause, which is the promotion of treatment and support for veterans who have been detrimentally affected health-wise by their wartime experiences. Harry was not interested in helping him. In fact, the Royal Foundation warned him off approaching Harry. Now, I know the way these things work. The Royal Foundation wouldn't have warned him off if Harry hadn't wanted him to be warned off. That's how the royal system works. According to Sergeant Colt, most veterans think Harry is a narcissistic, manipulative traitor. He uses the word traitor. He says that Harry betrayed what he was supposed to be standing for and betrayed the cause that he was supposed to be representing. That's a pretty powerful thing to say. But I happen to know a genuine war hero who echoes these sentiments exactly and says that most veterans have no time for Harry. They feel he has betrayed his oath to his commander-in-chief, whom he should never have criticized, whom he should never have put in the frame the way he did, whom he should never have disrespected the way he did. There is ample evidence that this is the way a lot of British veterans feel about Harry. Whether rightly or wrongly, and I simply make that distinction for legal reasons solely, the fact of the matter is, this is how they feel, and they have used his conduct to come to their conclusions. Therefore, the fact of the matter is, even if Harry hadn't been stripped of his military titles, they don't want to have anything to do with him. Christine H. says, "Can't believe I'm actually awake for the opening of your video, Lady C. It's 5 a.m. in New Zealand. I gewalt. I love your informative videos and the background history you add to some items. I have a question I would love to have answered. Re your prolonged court case with the newspaper. It's against the Daily Mirror. Editor, Alison Phillips. Journalist, Darren Lewis. Why can't or doesn't the court apply a time limit to stop them dragging it on and mounting up your costs? Have the courts got no powers to stop the blatant misuse of the system, which is punishing you, the innocent party? It all seems very wrong. It is very wrong. The court has already intervened twice to try to get them to behave themselves. They have refused to behave themselves. They have, and now I should make the point at this point, that as of last week, Friday, the whole legal world has shut down in Britain until the new year. They have point blank refused to submit an acceptable defense. They have finally submitted yet another defense which is totally unacceptable, which breaches the findings of the court. I told my lawyers some time ago that I have no doubt that they are spinning this out at least until January to see if Prince Andrew succeeds in his application to get the Virginia Giuffre lawsuit thrown out, in which case they will go hell for leather to try to drive me into court. Because this is not about the news. This is not about the accurate reporting of the news. This is not about what I said. This is about a political agenda by a certain segment of the press that is anti-establishment, that wishes to be the new elite, that wishes to destroy what they regard as the old elite. They are flagrantly abusing the system. If I, as an upper class person, had referred to them in the terms that they have referred to me, if I said, as they have basically said, we are not upper class and therefore we are good people. She is a member of the upper classes, as is Prince Andrew, as is all of the other people who we slagged off unfairly and unjustly, by the way. And because they are members of the elite, they are horrid human beings who deserve to be destroyed. Flip it around. If I said, oh, these people are lower than me in terms of class, and therefore they should be destroyed on that basis, what sort of a person would I be? I would be rightly condemned as the most dreadful class prejudiced creep who had ever existed. But they have actually put a variation of this in their defense. I mean, you couldn't make it up. The law, unfortunately, can only protect you to the extent that people are willing to respect the law in certain situations. The law has twice ruled that they are supposed to provide an acceptable defense, and they have, over 2 years later, still failed to do so. But this is not the end. Only when the end comes will it be the end. Between now and then, it is my determination that they will end up carrying the whole of the can for all of their shockingly disgraceful behavior. Tony says, the Daily Express blocks any comments negative about Harry and Meghan. However, if you say anything negative about the royal family, they will post it. Also, they will even stop positive comments about the royal family. Well, do you remember what I just said about the Daily Mirror and Alison Phillips? My understanding is that she oversees the whole of the operation. It's not only the Daily Mirror, it's also the Daily Express. Reach plc bought the Daily Express from Richard Desmond, who bought it from Lord Stevens, who bought it from Max Aitken, who was my sister-in-law's uncle. The Daily Express used to be owned by the Beaverbrook family. Max Aitken would have been he was the second Lord Beaverbrook, but he forswore the title. I'm not a complete ignoramus about how the press works, not only in terms of my personal experience, but in terms of my family connections. Let's put it that way. The Daily Express, all members of Reach plc are anti-royal. They will report on the royals to an extent positively when they have to, because they know on which side their bread is buttered, but they will do anything to not only bring down the royal family and to trash them, but to bring down the aristocracy and the old elite, notwithstanding the fact that Reach plc is the new elite. They simply want to destroy everybody that they regard as having been aristocratic or royal, so that they will not change the play, but change the cast. Even though they are now on stage, they don't think that's enough. The absolute destruction of all of us is what will be enough. And this tells me that we are dealing with true Marxists, because Marxism is the only political philosophy on earth that actually initially advocated the destruction of one class against the other and perpetual class warfare as a way of keeping the Marxists in power. So in fact, what Marxism does is it is a hyper elite, a tiny little elite, with all the royals, all the aristocracy, all the very rich people, all that is regarded as anybody who doesn't support them, destroyed. That's what happened in communism. That's what they would like to implement in Britain. And who knows? Because I have no doubt there's collusion on both sides of the Atlantic over my case and the Andrew case in America. Disgusting. Disgusting. Sharon Kiesling says, Dear Lady C, I doubt that you will respond, but I'm curious as to the correct pronunciation of Ghislaine. It is pronounced Gillan, like Gillan. It's not Ghislaine, and it's not Ghislaine, which would be the French pronunciation. It is Gillan. That's how the name is pronounced in Britain. Gillan Maxwell was named after Gillan Alexander, who became Lady Foley. It so happens that I've been friendly with the Foley family for most of my life. And Gillan Maxwell was named after Gillan Foley. It's pronounced Gillan. I hope that clears up that little mystery. Bevy Beebe says, and we end on this rather deliciously positive note, which I have to tell you has me crowing. I dreaded becoming an older female until I watched your videos and realized I can be older and still beautiful, not to mention classy. Oh gosh. And on that note, I will say, thank you so much for listening. I hope this has been of some interest to you. If it has, please like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell, keep the questions coming in, and I look forward to seeing you on Christmas Day. On that note, I'll say, take good care.